just phenomenal, just very brutal in terms of its visuals, very grotty and grimy, but yet really high coloured. I like the kind of colour schemes going on in that film, and again, just fantastic performances from Brad Pitt and Edward Norton, who I love. Even Helena Bonham Carter, who I'm not very fond of, shined so well in that film. Great philosophical a great film for philosophy as well, is what I'm trying to say. Number 14, 16, I can't count, is The Godfather Part II. Again, maybe another obvious choice, but hell, it's just so good, and it builds up on so much from the first one. It's actually, that might be the best sequel in cinema, I don't know. It's a toss-up between the two. Number 17 is The House of Flying Daggers, which is a martial arts film of sorts, but it's much more than that. It's very beautiful, especially the cinematography, and just everything about that film is just fantastic. Absolutely adore it. 18 is Inglourious Basterds, which is my first of a few Quentin Tarantino films. I love QT. I kind of love his mind, and where he is just a massive cinema geek, and perhaps he shows that off a little too much in Inglourious Basterds, but just the whole comic book approach to World War II is just fantastic. It really is something of a cult classic, I think. Number 19 is Jaws, which terrified me as a child and still